Now lipids are next, and so our goal is 30%. So if you're above 30%, then you need to lower to 30%. If you're below 30%, you don't need to raise it. The only criteria is going to be that each of your fatty acids, saturated, polyunsaturated, and mono, are going to be 1/3 of your total. So for example, if you were at 21%, each of them would have to be 7%. So what you'll need to do is look on this same bar graph page for calories, and you'll notice mine is at about 36% or so. So I need to lower that down, and I need to lower to 30%, which would be 10% of each. And so it's kind of different. There is unspecified lipids that I'm not sure what they are, and I don't think anybody else knows what they are either. So you just need to deal with that. But whatever your percentage is, you need to be at 1/3. In this case, if you're above, you get it down to 30. If you're below, but you'll notice they're not. In my scenario, they're even, but I should have done a better job of getting something different. But where they receive those or determine those percentages, if you go on that first page, you'll notice that what I've done is highlighted. I have the whole total fat, but then I have saturated, mono, and poly grams, and I've noted that they're 911. So those gram amounts, 27.59 equals 9%. The way they did that is they took that number, 27.59 times 9 calories per gram, divided it by your energy, total calorie energy intake, the 2751, and they got 9%. So in this scenario, I wouldn't have to do anything because they're pretty much even. But what you're going to find probably is that your saturated fats are going to be higher than they should be. They're going to be above the 10%, and your polys are going to be lower. And your mono may be pretty close, but whatever it takes. For example, if I wanted mine to be at 10%, I know that 27 is 9 and 35 is 11, so it's going to be in between that. So it's going to be about 31. It would represent 10%. So what you need to do is just look at those gram amounts and try to figure out, okay, what is 10%? You can do it, calculate it by taking your total calories intake times 30%, 0.3, and then that would give you 30% calories. Divide that by 9, and that's going to give you the grams that equal 30%. And then each fat would be 1/3 of that. The other option would be to take like saturated fat. You'd want 10%, so you'd take 27.51 times 0.1, divide by 9. That'd give you the gram amount for 10%. Then you're going to make those adjustments, and you're going to write it up the same scenario. Day 1, my old intake, food I'm going to change, new intake, until your average comes to 10% each. So you really don't have to adjust your total, even if you're above 30. As long as you get each of them 10%, then you're right at 30. But you'd write it up the same. And I just showed you this. PowerPoint is just showing you in your spreadsheets is where you would find all of the different fatty acids, and you need to make adjustments. So the way you'd make adjustments if you raise or lower is try to pick foods that are high or low. If you need to lower them, just pick foods that are high and just reduce your serving amount until you got your average down. Now again, you don't have to do every single day. You just want your average to be at the right percentage. So you can make adjustments on 1 or 2 days and leave 1 day alone if it's okay. So same scenario. As far as protein, as long as you're not over 20%, you don't have to make any adjustments. But what I'd want you to do is look at animal versus plant protein on that, and look at your percentages. You don't have to make any adjustments. You just have to report what it actually is. And so you can look at this same graph and look at your percentage. If it's over 20, then you have to make adjustments and reduce days amounts in day 1, day 2, and then write it up as you saw with the complex carbohydrates. But you can go to your spreadsheets, and to determine animal and plant, you just basically go through and say, okay, like I'm circling the animal and from meat. So um, I had these three figures that were from meat products. So eggs and dairy would be meat, and then so I came up with 63 grams of meat. So if you just take your total protein and subtract the meat, the rest would be plant. Then you basically add those up, day 1 plus day 2 plus day 3, divide by 3 to get an average, and then as long as you divide by your total protein on your 3-day average page, so this would be this number 107, divide your animal grams by that gram, you'll get a percentage. And then basically all you'd have to do is subtract from 100% and you'd have your plant percent. And I just want you to report that. The goal is supposed to be 60% plant, 40% animal, so we'll just see where you're at. Now these essential nutrients, these vitamins and minerals are the only ones I really want you to report on. You'll have several other ones like the B vitamins and stuff, and I do want you to give me the top 3 food items in those. But as far as making adjustments and looking at your percentages, the only ones I want you to do are vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E, calcium, iron, potassium, magnesium. And what you're looking at is if they're under 75%, then you're going to have to raise them to 100%. Or if they're above the UL, then you'd have to lower them down. But I rarely see people over the UL. So you're going to looking at see if they're below 75%, and then you'd have to raise them to your average to that 100% goal. So you'll look at these on, and I've got them highlighted on your 3-day average page. But if I blow that up, you'll notice that here's the DRI column on the left, and what your intake is on the right. And so they divided those, the DRI into your total, and you'll notice that my vitamin D is only 23%. So I need to get that up to 100%. Well, 100% is going to be 10 micrograms. So there's no real figuring out calculations. So you just do that. So as long as you get your 2.34, add some vitamin D foods, and get that up to 10 microgram average, and then you would meet the goal.